Hey crafty friends, this is Chelsea. I am so excited to be joining my friends Janice and Julie on their Christmas tag collab. They already have a couple weeks worth of videos up and they are awesome. You have to go check them out. This week they're focusing on the Christmas Snowflake Mandala November stamp of the month, which I absolutely wanted to play with. I used this during the 31 days of Christmas cards and made like 7 cards for one class, and I'm still not done with it. I love the beautiful design of this. I'm also going to be using some of the current mix-in paper, this nice plaid, and then some Seabrook Cardstock. And this pattern paper is from the Four Seasons Winter collection that's in the core catalog. I've got some Kraft Cardstock, and then also this gorgeous Seabrook glitter paper. I think for Christmas you can never go wrong using glitter paper. There's definitely going to be some stamping going on these tags, so I grabbed the Seabrook ink pad. The one that doesn't have a label is Mocha, a dark brown, and then the White Daisy pigment ink. I love the way white pigment ink looks on top of Kraft cardstock, so I just had to use that one for these tags. I'm also going to be using this Buildable tag thin cut set. I'm going to be using the one kind of with the squared off top there. And I'm cutting that from Kraft Paper to start with, and the little reinforcer as well. Now I would recommend, if you have any kind of stamp platform, that you definitely grab it for this very intricate design. I wanted the ability to stamp and restamp in the same spot so that I could get my image as white and as solid as I wanted to. You could also use Versamark and heat emboss this in white for a very bold, kind of perfect design as well. When I'm applying the ink to the stamp, I am going very lightly. Pigment ink pads have like a spongy instead of a felt pad on them, and so you don't want to push hard at all, or all of that pigment ink will kind of ooze down into the little grooves of your stamp, especially this one with so much delicate area. I just didn't want to risk getting big blobs of white on my tag, so I thought it would be better to just do several applications and get it stamped well that way, rather than trying to push really hard and get a ton of ink into my stamp. Now I also wanted to ink around the edge, and I probably should have waited for this to dry. Pigment ink is quite slow drying. You need to leave it for a while because it sits on top of the paper. Unlike a dye ink that sinks down into the fibers of the paper, this is sitting on top and it is super easy to smudge it. You'll see I do a couple little smudges, but it doesn't really matter for the finished tag. It's not going to show. Here is a look at that tag. The ink is going to fade a little bit. It won't be quite this bright white once it's dry, but I'm going to leave it dry probably for about half an hour. Now while that is drying, I grabbed my snowflake thin cuts and the Seabrook glitter paper to make this beautiful snowflake. And then I'm using this retired doily die, and I cut this out of the pattern paper. You could use any kind of doily die that you have. You could cut one out on your Cricut if you don't have this one. I just wanted something that would fit with the size of tag that I'm using. And then I also used the basic circles here to cut out a white circle that would fit on the back of this doily, because that is where I'm going to put my little to from, right on the back there. Now I am going for a very layered look on these tags, so I'm going to have several different pieces that all hang together on one tag. This one is going to be my sentiment strip. So I have a scrap of white cardstock, and I am just stamping it with the Mocha ink. And I'm going to actually give it 2 stamps because I want it to be a little bit darker and a little bit perfected. There wasn't perfect coverage on there. So I just stamped it again. And then I'm just going to take that to my trimmer and cut it down to size. And then I am going to do a little dovetail here on the end. And then at the top, I want to punch a hole. So I grabbed this little tiny hole punch that I haven't used in forever. It was just really handy, so I just grabbed it. I almost cut it a little bit too high, but it will be fine. And then I grabbed my Seabrook ink, and I'm just adding a little bit of color to the edges. Mostly just using white and Kraft and Seabrook on this tag, so I thought it'd be nice to bring in that color onto this little white piece of paper. My tag is not dry yet, but I wanted to add some stickles onto it, so I thought this would be the perfect time. Then the ink and the stickles could dry all at the same time. I had a few different options here that I was considering, including these glisten stickles, the platinum stickles, which those are the ones I'm going to end up using, and then I have the rose gold and the sage liquid pearls, but I thought glitter would really look nice on here, so I am just going in with my stickles in the platinum color, and I like that it's a bit softer than gold. It's kind of like a soft gold or an old gold, and it's not too bright and blingy, but just adds the right amount of shimmer. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in the little dots and details on this mandala, and then it can set aside and finish drying while the rest of the pigment ink is also drying. This doesn't look very glittery right now, but it will once it's done drying. It'll really add some nice sparkle to this tag. Now while that's drying, I'm going to make myself a bow. So I have this bow tying jig that my friend's husband actually made for me. And it just has all these little holes so you can adjust the size that the loops on your bow are going to be. I have mine just a couple spaces apart. And I'm using this retired white ribbon. It's just kind of like a cotton ribbon from Close to My Heart. It's really easy to tie bows with, and there's not like a front side and a back side, which is nice. And I'm just winding it around the pegs, and I'm going to go around 3 times. And then once I have my ribbon on the side that's facing me, I'm going to make the ends about the same length and then just snip off that ribbon. Then I'm going to take the left side and put that over top of the right side and then tuck it all the way under to the other side of my loops there, and then pull it over to the top, and so they're back on the same side again, and then just make a knot, just like a single knot. And I love how this works because it creates a really nice bow. You can get the front knot nice and smooth, and you can pull it nice and tight, and then you just lift it off of those little pegs and adjust your ends and fluff the loops on your bows. I am so not coordinated enough to make bows without a tool the way some of the other creative design team members do. I need this jig. It really helps with my uncoordinated fingers, and I love the bows that I get from it and that I can adjust the size of the loops so easily. I'm going to make a couple more of these bows for the other tags that I'm going to create in this video, and that way they're ready to go. Well, our tag is dry now. All the stickles are nice and glittery, and I can bring in all my pieces and show you how this is going to go together to make this layered tag. I'm going to use some DMC floss here. This is number 928, and it's actually a really good match for the Seabrook color. So I'm just going to cut off a little length. Usually I make these longer than they probably need to be, but I figure I can always trim them after my gift tag is on the package. And then if I want to tie them in a bow or whatever, I have enough length to do that. So you want to start with whatever's going to be on the top. So I'm kind of going in order of what's in front and then working my way backwards. It works out really well that these snowflakes have perfect little holes on the ends. So I'm just threading my floss through there, and then I'm going to put them through my tag, and then I'll also put it through one of the little holes on that doily. One of the little flower petals should work really good for that. And then I just want to even out my ends so they're the same length, and then I'm going to just tie this in a knot. Put that around my fingers and then pull the ends through, and that way I don't have to worry about any of the little pieces falling off, and I still have lots of length on my ends to tie onto my package. I love the variety on this tag. I have different sizes and textures and shapes. I just think it looks really pretty and really interesting. Now I need a spot to put my to from. This is a stamp that you're going to see in a minute, and it's called A Merry Little Christmas. It's part of the current special that's going on, and I'm just going to put that onto the back of the doily here so I have a spot to write that information, and it will be hidden back there. Now the finishing touch for this is our bow. So I'm grabbing my large glue dots, and I am just going to pick one of those up on my bow, and then I'm going to stick it on the top of this tag. And this was pretty before the bow, but I think the bow just really sets it off and makes it that extra special little touch. Now you can see for the next tag, I've already done a little bit of prep work. I'm using this fancy tag set, and I cut 2 of the round tag there with the stitched edging on it. This set is actually retired, but I still love it and get lots of use out of it. I stamped the mandala with the white ink onto the craft, and then I also inked both pieces with white pigment ink around the edge. I have a smaller snowflake with the glitter paper. My doily was cut from the plaid pattern paper, and I thought I was going to use this white tag for one of these sentiments. These are part of the current special, and I love them, but they didn't quite fit on this tag. It was so close, but they were just a tad too big, and it was hard to get them on there perfectly. So what I ended up doing was stamping that one right there onto this tag. So this is going to be my back of my tag. So when you flip it over, this is what you're going to see. I used my stamp platform just in case I didn't get a perfect transfer of the ink. I'm going to be using Mocha ink again. That's a really nice color to use on top of the Kraft cardstock. It's dark enough to show up, but it's not as harsh or as bold as using black. So I liked how the Mocha looked on this, and I think with one stamping, it actually turned out pretty good. Such a beautiful sentiment. So now we're getting closer to assembling everything. I wanted to do a to from on little strips of cardstock. I grabbed that A Merry Little Christmas. This is part of the From Me to You special, and there's 12 different little sentiments that fit perfectly onto tags. I will have that linked down below for you if you want to go see all of the ones in this special. Now I'm using the hole on my tag to help guide where to punch holes on these little strips. I actually end up not using these strips because I stamped the to from too close to the bottom. I forgot I wanted to do little dovetails on the ends. So I punched my holes, and then I ended up needing to recut my pieces and do all that again. But I'm also going to punch a hole here in my doily because none of the openings lined up perfectly with this round tag. And I realized my hole punch is not going to fit. So I had to go digging for my crocodile, which will fit. And then I'm just using that to punch a hole so that I can connect this and have my circle tag in the middle of the doily. So here I have some new strips. These are about 1/2 inch wide and about 2 inches. One of them is about 2 inches. The other one's about 2.5 inches long. I wanted one to be longer than the other so that there'd be room to overlap them, because they're going to just kind of go on the front like that. I decided I wanted to use the dark side of the Seabrook cardstock. Initially, I thought the light, but the light side was really light. I wanted a little bit more of that color. So now I'm stamping the to from with the Mocha ink, and then I'm going to punch holes in these so that they are ready to thread onto my tag. So now I'm just laying everything out in order of how it's going to go onto that thread. I'm going to use the same thread that I used for the last one, and the sentiment tag is going to be on the back side. So here I have everything threaded together, and then I have my bow here. I'm using a glue dot, and I'm just going to stick it right at the top of those little tags. And I love how the bow just brings it all together. And then I'll just trim up the ends a little bit. I always like to have my ends longer than necessary and trim it up once I have my bow onto my tag. Oh, isn't that so cute? It's shimmery, it's pretty, there's lots of details to it, and I'm just loving how these tags are coming together. All right, here's our third and final tag. You can see I already stamped it with the white, and I edged it with the white as well. And then I cut this really big doily. This is from the Fancy Doilies Thin Cut set. And that it is a big die. It's just about 6 inches. So it's definitely a tag for a big parcel or a big gift bag. I thought it would be fun to have a range of sizes. Basically, I have like a smaller, a medium, and a large, all kind of following the same design. Now, I felt like this gray paper was kind of blending into my desk there. So I grabbed my Versamat so you could see a little bit more clearly what I'm doing. And in the end, I actually end up swapping out this gray paper because it was just a little bit too blah. Now, I have been itching to use this brand new Merry Christmas Layers Thin Cut. I haven't used it yet, so I just wanted to dig it out for this project. I have 2 layers of the outline cut with the Seabrook Cardstock and then the solid layer cut in Vellum. And then there is also a Mary die that comes with this, and I cut it from the pearl paper, which is a white cardstock, but it has a nice pearly finish to it. Unfortunately, this is a retired product, but I just couldn't resist using it on here. And then I cut another snowflake with the glitter cardstock and another white circle a little bit larger for the back side. So first off, I needed to decide if I wanted to kind of stack my outline layers on top of each other, or maybe if I wanted to put one in front and one behind the vellum and kind of sandwich the vellum in between. I just ended up deciding to put them one on top of the other, and that worked out great. Gives it a little bit more stability and will stand up on a tag a little bit better, I think. Now, this would have been a great die to cut from adhesive paper, but I didn't do that. So I'm adding little dots of glue and just trying to keep it really thin so I don't get a bunch of glue oozing out. And then I'm just going to put it on top of the vellum and then add the second layer by putting on more glue and just pressing that second layer on top. You don't want to forget the little inside parts of the A and the R. That really makes it look complete. And there's my double layered Christmas. I love how thick and sturdy it is. You could even add more layers if you wanted to make it a thicker embellishment. And I'm just finding the hole on my big doily there to figure out how this is all going to layer up. I have the little Mary and then the Christmas and the snowflake. So I'm just kind of trying things out to see where I want everything to go. So I went ahead and I adhered that Mary onto the top of the word Christmas. And it was at this point where I was like, you know what, this is looking very blah. I need more color. I need some more pop to this. It's kind of all blending into one tone, and there just wasn't enough definition. So even though I had already put my thread on, I'd strung these all together, I decided I wanted to put some liquid pearls on the mandala. I'm using the sage color. And then I'm also going to use some diamond stickles. So I have both pearls and stickles on this one. So I'll give you a little close-up look here so you can see what that looks like. I'm going to have to set this aside now and let those air dry. That's the only drawback to using liquid pearls and stickles. So I decided on what paper I wanted to swap out for that gray paper. This is from the Four Seasons winter pack. It's kind of like a birch tree pattern. And then I inked the edges with the Seabrook ink just to add a little bit more color to this and a little bit of definition to those edges. I'm still working carefully with that stamped tag because I don't think those pearls and stickles are completely dry, but I just wanted to keep going on this while I was on a roll. So I'm trying to be very careful not to touch anything. And I'm going to use the same embroidery floss to string all my pieces together, again, starting from whatever's going to be in the front and then working my way backwards. That little white circle you see in the upper right-hand corner, that was the to from circle that I already had stamped, and on my gray doily, I just peeled it off and it's just sitting there waiting to go on the back side of this white one. Now everything was finally dry, so I could put it together without worrying about it smudging, and I love how this turned out. I did stick a bow on it. You can see the back side. I stuck my to from circle on there, and it's just so delicate with the white and the Seabrook and the glitter. It's just all the different textures and the pattern. Those pearls and the stickles add that nice pop to the stamp design. And I'm really happy with how this came out. I just ended up putting this on by putting the thread through the C there. I thought about punching a hole in the vellum, but then I decided against it, and I think it worked out just fine. Now here is the first tag we did. So this is kind of the medium-sized tag. We have all our layers, our nice sparkly stickles there, and that nice kind of heavily frosted edge. It kind of reminds me of like a frosty window on the edge there with all that pigment ink. Now, if you guys like these tags and you'd like to see more ideas of how I've used this stamp, the 31 Days of Christmas Cards is still open for replay registration until November 15th. So if you're watching this before then, you can hop on over there. The link is down below and you can sign up and watch all 31 videos. There's over 100 cards. So lots of Christmas inspiration. If you're wanting to get your hands on this Christmas mandala set, it is only available in November. I'll have that link down below as well. If you haven't seen Julie's and Janice's videos yet, make sure you go watch them. I'll have them linked down in the description, and Janice's will be linked right here, so you can click on that and go watch now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.